This is World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Coming up, on the heels of Hong Kong's legislative election, what are the city's youth aspirations and inspirations? How do they see their future? Direct answers from a Hong Kong youth leader next.
From the heart to heart, when you love your country, when you love Hong Kong, so then it will be a lot of things that you go towards the positiveness of the build-up of our city.
Welcome back. This is World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. With the newly elected Legislative Council, Hong Kong is looking to the future, and that has everything to do with the city's youth, how they see themselves and the world. Choi is one of them. He is the chief president of the Hong Kong Youth Association and vice chairman of the Greater Bay Area Homeland Youth Community Foundation. Let's feel the vibe of Hong Kong's young generation with him. The latest results of the Legislative Council have already been revealed. You, as a representative of a youth association in Hong Kong, what do you make of the result?
I see that the results, of course, out of a very fair, open, impartial, and also an efficient process. I think for the whole, election process. Of course, it's especially meaningful this time because it's the first time of an election out of the revised, enlarged electoral system. So now that with Patriots administering Hong Kong, I think it's actually means a lot, I think, to people like us, born in Hong Kong, develop our career and our home base, from Hong Kong, that we are seeing that people who loves the country, loves Hong Kong, gets to, rule Hong Kong. I think, and from how we see it is also that it's very much important that we have an efficient process of the electoral, not only throughout the election process, but into the actual functioning.
You look at the name list, a lot of post the 70s, 80s generation, and probably even moving to the 90s generation, very different group of people, right? I mean, it's our generation in a way. What do you make of this generation in Hong Kong? Obviously, they've been going through some of the ups and downs together with Hong Kong over the past few decades.
I think Hong Kong young people are full of innovations, creativities. And now that for this election this time, I'm very glad to see that exactly like what you said, Wei, that people in our age group, you start to see more of the involvement in the election process. So not only for the 153 candidates, but also for the 90 selected members. So give you some statistic, right? People in the our age group, and also kind of younger than that, this people group actually represent more than 50%. Of all selected members. But if you look into the 80s and younger generation, including also 1990s, amazing to see this particular category representing over 20%, or in fact 21%, I think, of all the 90 members. So I think all these are very promising because what we want is actually a good diversity from all walks of lives and also age group.
Already, as teenager or in the early 20s, I mean, your generation in a way, when Hong Kong returned to the motherland, that must be a very significant event in your memory of how Hong Kong is linked to the motherland and the rest of the world. So tell us more about, with the characteristics of this generation, how likely they are going to proceed with their job as the Legislative Council members.
I think that, for younger generation, I think, the younger people in Hong Kong, of course, they need to have the good awareness, of, the understanding towards our nation. So most of the people in Hong Kong, or especially the younger generation, and now that not to mention also because of the COVID, many of the people might not have the opportunity to go back deeply into the mainland. So I think, I have the opportunity myself, I think over my careers and professional development. I lived for several years in Beijing, in China. Those several years of timing actually helped me a lot in terms of the network of relationship, in terms of my understanding towards the actual functioning of our great country. So in a way that now that presidency, mentioning that the future of China, the future of our nation belongs to the youth. So these are the leaders of tomorrow that we need to groom, we need to support, we need to promote more of their opportunities, but in fact connectivities with our wider, areas of our nation. So I
Right.
think that, I very much want to see that the new LegCo to promote more of opportunities, I think, for Hong Kong younger people, but then, embracing the Greater Bay, I think the
Right.
national strategy, and also into connecting with the wider part of our nation.
Earlier, I was talking to
Exactly.
Rita, Rita Fan, the first chairperson of the Hong Kong Legislative Council, certainly a very well respected and very strong minded woman. And she talked about her generation. She said, for a while, Hong Kong was mainly fascinated by exhilarating speeches and beautiful ideas and forgot to look onto the ground and feel connected with what's really going on with the realities. Now, that's for her generation. What about for our generation? How do people reflect upon over the past few years, especially people like you? You run some of the most significant and influential young people associations in Hong Kong. Tell me more about how you are interacting with your colleagues about this.
I see that the most important areas of focuses will be how can we help, how can we cultivate, how can we promote more of opportunities for them. Otherwise, they do not have the exposure. So I think over the past several years, I focus on several things. One is the world stage or exposures beyond the local, exposure that they otherwise will get to. So, for example, where you and I, we have been to the World Economic Forum. I think, it's always the mission that we bring more of the younger people or the young entrepreneurs. So that, previously, if you recall that we set up the Greater Bay Young Entrepreneurs Association, at
By the way, there
Davos.
was a
Of
lot
course,
of good parties at your tent at the World Economic Forum. I would never forget that.
exactly, all the good times, right? That's number one. I think so is world exposure, connectivity. Then number two, I think it's really about upskill, training, education. Because I think no one can know or learn about everything just by kind of like, sticking to your old textbook or, without an open mind. But finally, I think, again, right, they need to have a good understanding towards our country, towards our nation, and towards Hong Kong. I think it's really about that, from the heart to heart, when you love your country, when you love Hong Kong, so that it will be a lot of things that you go towards the positiveness of the
Right.
build out of our city.
One of the things we're experiencing right now, realities on the ground, by the way, is the pandemic. Now, whether it's about Greater Bay connectivity and also Hong Kong as the bridge, as the super connector between the mainland and the rest of the world as well. I mean, now that process has been partly hindered as a result of the pandemic, which everybody in the world has to face. So, what do you make of this reality, and how can people be proactive rather than passive and pessimistic?
I think first of all is the mindset, right? I think really about how we could demonstrate resilience, perseverance during ups and downs and different challenges. I think over the past several years, of course, where you and I, and as in every Hong Kong people, we have been through SARS, we have been through the now that the COVID, but then also in the some of the previous time, also those violent moments of time that right now I think first of all we see that the revised the enhanced electoral system now that with patriots administering Hong Kong will be very much important that we see an effective functioning of our LegCo, so that I think there will be more of a promotional of policies to support the future of Hong Kong. I think that's number one. I think number two is really that how we should look into ourselves to self-develop, but also to grow ourselves individually to align, with the bigger national dream of our country. But also, I think for Hong Kong, having every attribute, the strategic positioning of us, under one country, two system, the Greater Bay Area, ourselves, being the most international city, with our world exchange, with lots of the kind of like attributes. One thing that I feel very glad and also to have also enjoyed, and also benefited from processes that you see that the Hong Kong government now giving out more of the virtual licenses to support the digitalization of the financial services sector. So not only the virtual bank, virtual insurance, virtual asset exchange, and everything surrounding, but now they also have Wealth Connect, and also for the newer rules and innovations from our stock exchange.
How will the administration, the Legislative Council, and together with the general society in Hong Kong be able to digest the history and understand it in a way that is efficient?
When we look into the newer and enhanced system, I mean, no one can say that, now that everyone, across the city or, maybe even internationally, they understand enough thoroughly, about the new systems. I think it's really about that over time. You need time. I think, now there's just the first election out of it. So over time, we are very confident that people will get to know more about, the good result of it, the efficiency, the effectiveness of the new LegCo, but also the functioning of the overall government. I think ultimately it's not just about a governmental situation, but it's from a G to C, so from government to commercial or corporations into the mass. So we all need to work together. It's a collective effort. So I think that's number one. I think number two, I think it's really about civic education. Over time, we get to know a lot more about our country, throughout, ourselves, kind of going into the actual places, interacting, learning, and also developing, our own businesses or individually. So I think, all this, are really towards positive goals or an ongoing process. So I think civic education, I would say that will be very much important. Hopefully the new LegCo members can focus a lot into the areas to support and cultivating the right concept and the right understanding towards our country, starting with the youth.
What do you like to say to those newly elected Legislative Council members?
Well, be a connector yourself, not just Hong Kong as a connector. So each one of the new LegCo member, please widely connect. I mean, with all ages, all diversity, and also again, right, not just within Hong Kong. Sometimes I think the focuses have been too much of a local, but then we understand more about the broader country. But in fact, internationally, how others actually seeing us, or maybe perceiving us, but then how we could kind of tell them about the truths, the facts, the circumstances, and how we demonstrate. But of course, I think it's also I call for the attention and also the focuses by everyone, because again, it's not a single focuses or a single effort, but it's a joint ownership and responsibility.
My conversations on Hong Kong today. Before we go, Tuesday marks this year's Winter Solstice Festival, also known in China as the Dongzhi Festival. It is one of the 24 solar terms in the traditional Chinese calendar, meaning the day with the shortest daytime in Northern Hemisphere. People across China celebrate the festival with special dumplings honoring deities and also, of course, family reunions. It is a time-honored tradition for Chinese in the mainland, in Hong Kong, and everywhere in the world. And we are a big family, and you are welcome to celebrate that festival with all of us. And that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei. On behalf of the team, thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow.